Hey guys, my name is Matsumiao, and welcome to our episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you would like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook and Twitter message. The first question for today comes from John, and it is, how do you feel about a defensive operator in Rainbow Six Siege that can break a hatch and then set a fake hatch that when an attacking operator steps on it, they fall into the trap or it blows up on them? Now, admittedly, this is one of the more unique and clever ideas I've heard for bringing in a new trap operator into Rainbow Six Siege. I'm constantly bombarded by questions about bringing in bouncing betties, landmines, or claymores on defense, but this is actually a really cool twist on a trap operator that I could get on board with. My one concern with this, though, is that I have a feeling, just like every other trap operator in the game, that he would not necessarily become obsolete, but he probably would be at the bottom tier. CanCan and Frost, when they were first introduced, were actually really powerful. No one knew what to look out for. Frost, for example, people weren't looking down at the ground when they were jumping through windows, but once they got comfortable, once they knew that the enemy had a Frost hardly gets any trap kills anymore, and so because of that, well, she's still okay. She's not awful. She's not completely useless. I just don't think that she's one of the better operators in the game. And so if they did decide to bring in this trap that you could place on a hatch, there would need to be some identification, as long as offense is observance, that that hatch is actually booby-trapped. There needs to be that there. If it wasn't, it would just be a nightmare. You'd go to place your gadget, you put your breaching charge on it, and then all of a sudden it blows up in your face. That's not going to be enjoyable. Like, if you instantly die out of nowhere, that's not fun, and if you had no way of knowing, that's not a fun gameplay mechanic. The only way that I could see them working around this, and honestly it could be kind of funny, is that if the trap, as you described, was just a normal hatch, but then if they stepped on it, they fall on in. So it doesn't explode, it doesn't kill them or anything like that. All it does is that when they step on it, or they place their breaching charge or whatever, it just disintegrates in front of them, and then they fall into the objective or in the room that they were trying to breach on in. And so it could be a double-edged sword. On the one end, now they're in the room, and if you're not expecting it, they could kill you. But if you are waiting for them and you know that they're above you, you can wait for them to all of a sudden just plunge on in, not expecting it. And if you're not expecting to fall into a room, you're probably going to be disoriented for at least a split second, and that could give the defense the time enough to take you down. The thing about that, though, is I don't know if that's a worthy enough gadget to warrant picking him on defense. There's a lot of great defensive operators. Do you want to have someone that creates fake hatches that basically allows offense to have a sledge on their team where they can just kind of walk on in and jump onto the objective and potentially take you by surprise? And so all in all, while I think it's a really interesting take on trap operators, it takes an existing mechanic and kind of expands upon it, I just don't know if it would really work. If it exploded, Ubisoft would need to have some indication that the hatch is trapped, and then after a couple of weeks, people would get wise to it. After that, I don't think that he would be really all that viable compared to the other defenders. And if it just kind of was a trapdoor that opened up when people walked over it, it also has its drawbacks, and I don't know if that would be strong enough to warrant picking him as well. The next question is, are you disappointed that Ubisoft is delaying the next Rainbow Six Siege DLC to work on Operation Health? Yeah, absolutely. I, like everyone else, was really looking forward to this content. I wanted the new operators, I wanted the new map, and to have it delayed, while I'm glad that they're going in to try to fix all these problems, is kind of a kick in the guts. The one thing that could make this better, though, that I was not aware of, is that Ubisoft is apparently at the same time going to be updating and fixing and changing some of the current maps that we have in the game. One big question that I had with this announcement was, why wasn't the level design team working and continuing to bring us more content? I mean, they're not the same guys that are working on the core infrastructure for the servers. Like, that's just not how development works, or at least I don't think that's how it works. And so why would they be taken away from working on bringing us more content to work on something else? And so apparently that question has been answered. The community manager came out and said that they are going to be updating and improving and optimizing the old maps. The reason why this gets me excited, though, is that it could mean two different things. On the one hand, it could be them just fixing old bugs and glitches, which isn't all that interesting. But on the other, it could mean them updating and changing and improving the maps for the better and on some of the objectives. There are some objectives in this game that are a nightmare nightmare to defend on defense. If you're playing on Clubhouse, for example, no one's going to pick the money room because it's impossible to defend. Every once in a while, you might get lucky, but if you're trying to be competitive, you're not picking that objective because there's no viable way to defend that room, at least consistently. And so if Ubisoft is going to go on in and improve their words, they're saying they're going to improve and update them, this could mean that a lot of the maps and a lot of the objectives that weren't normally viable, they're going to go on in and update them, change something slightly around so they're more appealing when you're attacking or on offense. That would be incredible. And so yes, we may not be getting a new map, but if they're able to make these slight changes to every single map in the game and change them slightly, that means every map is now going to play slightly differently, and that could actually be a game changer. Now, I do want to say that this is speculation. We don't know if this is actually true, but I am really keeping my fingers crossed. We've talked about this a little bit in the past, and if this is actually something they're going to go through with, I think that's going to be incredible. All in all, though, I'm still right there with you that I am a bit disappointed. I feel like Ubisoft just wasn't prepared for the success of Rainbow Six Siege, and they don't have the infrastructure in place to sustain and support this growing game, and they had to take the time to do this. I think that they were falling behind, and while it does suck for all of us, my hope is that it will be the right call in the long term, and it will just improve the health of the game. The next question comes from Tony, and it is, what about an attacking operator that is the opposite of Caveira and that he/she has increased hearing for 10 seconds? He can hear Caveira normally when she is in silent step. So basically, you just described an operator who can just turn up their in-game volume. You can do that already. You could max your in-game volume, put it to 100%, and then hear people's footsteps from across the map. If anyone shoots next to you, your ears are gonna bleed. That's one downside of it, but that's essentially what you just described. Now, if we made it more precise, then I could see this working. If the operator, all they did was fine-tune their senses, I know this doesn't make any sense, but if they fine-tune their senses to only pick out, footsteps, so footsteps were louder and only footsteps were louder, that could honestly be an okay operator. Every time I come across a Cav main, I always think to myself, oh, let's play as Jackal to counter her. Jackal was designed from the ground up to counter roamers. Cav is the ultimate roamer. Why not play him? Then I remember to myself, oh yeah, Cav is actually the counter to Jackal. And while yes, he can sort of figure out where she is, as soon as she activates that silent step ability, she's gone. Like, you're gonna have no idea where she was. You're not gonna see her footprints or anything like that. Like, she really is the direct counter to Jackal. And so it would be nice to have someone in the game that could also counter roamers as well. You activate this ability for a couple of seconds, you can hear the slight ruffle of someone's feet out in the distance, and you might know that someone's in the opposite room. Even if they're not roaming, you activate it, you can listen and hear for people on the objective, and if you're able to use that sound properly, maybe you could even shoot them through the wall. And so all in all, while I'm not 100% sold on the idea, because once again, this is basically just an operator that is increasing their in-game volume, as long as it was tailored to just certain sounds and not all the sound, because as I said, you turn it all the way up, your ears are gonna bleed, that might be okay. Let me know what you guys think about this. Do you think that this wouldn't be too impactful? Do you think this is kind of a lame idea? Do you love the idea? Give me your guys' thoughts down below. The next question comes from Anthony, and it is, do you think that the way that they're releasing the Polish operators will unbalance the game? No, as long as they do it correctly, it shouldn't have any impact whatsoever. If you guys aren't aware, because of Operation Health, everything is being pushed back, and the Polish operators are being clumped in with the final 2 pieces of DLC. So up next, we got Hong Kong, those 2 operators, and they're also including one of the Polish operators. Then after that, we got the 2 Korean operators, and then that final Polish operators. So basically 3 operators each DLC. And so I'm assuming what you're getting at is that by separating the 2, that's gonna cause some imbalance. If you don't have one Polish operator on your team and the other team doesn't, you're gonna be at a huge disadvantage. The thing is though, is that this has never been a problem in the past content. Buck is not a counter to Frost. Frost is not a counter to Buck. Mira doesn't counter Jackal and vice versa. Like there's no correlation there. And so while it does suck that they are slightly separating them, I don't think it's going to unbalance the game as long as they do it properly. I mean, if one of them is really, really overpowered, then of course, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. And so while I can see where you're coming from, it hasn't been a problem in the past, and I would not expect it to be an issue in the future. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed today. Do you like the idea of being able to booby trap a hatch? Do you think that's a good idea, a bad idea? Let me know down below. As always, if you would like to submit your own question, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.